She stood in the center of a glittering ballroom, a place she never imagined she would ever visit. Chandeliers shimmered like stars above her, and the wealthy of the wealthy waltzed through the evening like they ruled the world. She had arrived there in grace, wearing confidence like a crown and a deep navy dress that flowed like an evening tide. Each step she took told the world. Greater than, I rebuilt myself from the pieces others thought were broken forever. But just when life begins to feel perfect, the shadows of the past love to return. And so it happened. A voice from behind, arrogant, entitled, called out her name. Elena. She turned, and her breath paused. There he was. Liam Barker, her ex. The man who once made her believe she was worthless. The man who laughed when she cried. The man who walked away when she lost everything. He stood with a champagne flute in his hand, smirking as though he still owned her pain. He had heard of her marriage. Heard she had moved on. But he didn't know the truth, one that would soon change everything. He stepped closer, his voice dripping with mockery. Greater than, so, you married some nobody. Couldn't do better than a common guy, huh? Elena smiled softly. Not anger, not hurt, just strength. Because sometimes silence screams louder than words. Liam hated that. He wanted to see her tremble like before. So, he lifted his champagne flute, and in a single cruel motion. Splash! Golden bubbles spilled down her dress. Gasps filled the ballroom. Her makeup began to blur at the edges. The cold liquid slid down her arms like insult made physical. And he laughed. A loud, cruel laugh, the kind that stabs at dignity. Greater than, oops, sorry, just slipped. The crowd watched, some shocked, others entertained, because there are always those who enjoy humiliation when it isn't their own. Liam leaned closer, voice low, dripping venom. Greater than, face it, Elena, you never belonged here. You're still just a nobody trying to look expensive. For a moment, a very short moment, her eyes lowered. But strength, real strength, doesn't remain silent for long. And the sound of footsteps approached quickly behind her. A commanding voice cut through the music and laughter. Greater than, is there a problem here? The crowd parted like the sea. Standing there, tall, composed, powerful, was Alexander Gray. Her husband. Not just any man. The owner of the very hotel they were standing in. A man whose signature was worth more than Liam's entire lineage. A man who rebuilt her heart with patience and gentleness. Alexander's eyes didn't show anger, only a controlled fire. But Liam, he didn't yet know who he was dealing with. He smirked again. Greater than, we were just having fun. She doesn't mind. Right, Elena. Alexander stepped forward, placing his coat around Elena's shoulders, shielding her, protecting her, claiming her with pure respect. Then he looked Liam dead in the eyes. Greater than, a man who thinks humiliation is fun, is a man who has already lost. Liam scoffed, still ignorant. Greater than, and who exactly are you to interrupt me? Alexander didn't raise his voice. Power doesn't need volume. Greater than, Alexander Gray. Her husband. And the owner of this establishment. Liam's smirk collapsed instantly. He stuttered, his voice breaking under the weight of his own mistake. Greater than, wait, the billionaire Alexander Gray. Alexander didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Elena, not asking if she was okay, but knowing she would rise above this. Then, calmly, he addressed the room. Greater than, tonight, we celebrate kindness, dignity, and respect. Anyone who violates those values will be escorted out immediately. Security appeared like shadows responding to a silent command. Liam panicked. Greater than, no, this is a misunderstanding. She knows I was just. Alexander raised one hand, and silence shut Liam's mouth. He turned to Liam with a final verdict. Greater than, you lost the right to speak to her, the day you made her feel small. Liam was grabbed by the arms as he reached out desperately, no longer for control, but for mercy. But mercy isn't given to those who never offered it. He was dragged out, his champagne flute still trembling in his hand. The ballroom returned to its elegance, but everyone had witnessed a lesson that would stay with them forever. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never mistake a quiet woman for a powerless one. Alexander guided Elena toward a private lounge. No crowd, no judgment, just love. He wiped away a drop of champagne from her cheek, gently, and whispered. Greater than, you deserve the world. Not a single drop less. Elena looked into his eyes, eyes that saw her worth long before diamonds and titles entered her life, and she breathed out the truth she had learned through pain. Greater than, I used to think being loved meant being tolerated. But now I know, true love means being valued. Alexander smiled. Greater than, you are priceless, Elena. And anyone who tries to diminish your worth will always discover, they were never worthy of you. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered. Greater than, thank you, for choosing me. He kissed her forehead. Greater than, no. Thank you, for surviving. For growing. For daring to love again. Then, stepping back into the ballroom, with confidence reborn, she realized something important. Her ex didn't shame her that night. He exposed himself. Because a man who belittles a woman shows only one truth. His own smallness. And Elena, she shined brighter than any diamond in the room. Her greatest revenge was not anger, not humiliation, not payback. It was happiness. It was the life she built without the man who tried to destroy her. It was the grace in her stride. The dignity in her silence. The pride in her survival. And the hand of a man who loved her not for what she had, but for who she was. So let this story echo far beyond this night. If anyone ever tells you, you are too small, too weak, too plain, to belong in the world of greatness, look them in the eyes and say, greater than, watch me. For sometimes, the most powerful transformation is simply rising above those who once tried to pull you down. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the truth.